Welcome to the August 9th work session. That's Alderman Small to pray, and then we'll get right into the business.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come this morning and thank you again for allowing us to wake this morning. We give you the praise and give you the glory. We ask, Lord, that you bless everyone under the sound of my voice. We ask, Lord, that you bless this county, bless this city. We ask, Lord, that you give us the strength and the power to do what is right in this city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We'll go into department reports. Public Works. First, we have revised municipal code title 16/chapter 2 excavation.
Mayor, the existing code is in currently in effect. It is on the option, and the only recommended change is for the 24-hour turnaround on presenting the permit will be 3 buttons.
We've been about 3 or 4 months on this issue, and the original changes we looked at making, it had to do with paving, it had to do with replacing sewer lines, replacing water lines, and trying to coordinate with FPU. And we felt like we had some more changes was going to make, but after sitting down with FPU with an extended meeting, we came to the conclusion we're going to be able to work together. We had a really good meeting. We're going to be more on the same page. We're going to work a whole lot better. So as it turned out, the changes we had been looking at other than these kind of went by the wayside. We're going to be able to work it out in a different way. And that's the reason we came down with this one change. And really the reason for this change right here, if you think about it, is if we're going to issue a permit within 24 hours, let's say if someone comes in at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Well, according to the code, we got to issue that permit by 3 o'clock on Saturday. We're not open on Saturday. We're not open on weekends. So this was not really giving our departments enough time to look at those permits and to see if we had a problem with them or whatever. So we went to 3 working days, which it works for us. It works for FPU. Not that they will use that a whole lot, but it works for them also. And that was the reason for this one change. And I'd refer over to the Vice Mayor. She's on that committee too, if she has anything on this.
Well, just that the FPU has a lot of rehab going on all over the cities, everybody has seen. And the Public Works Department trying to pave streets that need to be paved too. We can't really do both. We can't pave a street and have FPU go back to do the rehab. So we're trying to look at what we can do in areas that they aren't going to be working in to get some of that paving done.
Everybody, if the board's good with this, we'll take this Tuesday night for a vote. Okay. Number 2 under Public Works is RFP Storm Drainage Engineering Services. Eddie?
We requested RFP for engineering on-call service. We received 4. We evaluated those, got it down to 1. Our recommendation, looking at what they submitted and then the past experience, we recommended Troy.
Okay. So Scott, do we need to vote on this on Tuesday, or is this just information for the board?
Primarily information, sir, and we will be bringing the projects to Public Works, then to the full board as we start analyzing some of the many issues we have. But right now there's funding available to cover the initial work.
Okay. All right. Number 3, Stonebridge parking request for bids. Eddie?
Mayor, this is the lot that y'all purchased a couple of months ago. We've been down there cleaning it up. We just guidance on which way the board wants to go.
About whether we want to pave it.
You want to pave it, you want us to clean up, get all the concrete up, gravel it. That's the be all procedure.
I'd love to see it paved. It'd make it a lot better presentation, keep better and everything too, so I think it'd be better paved.
That was a recommendation of our committee, and a lot of that recommendation is probably based on the fact there's a lot of paving down there already. Well, that paving, if we put gravel down there, you're going to take that paving up. It's what there already, because gravel will be everywhere on that paving, scattered everywhere. So it's already really a base there for paving. So we recommend paving too.
I drove down there the other night, Eddie, and it looks really good. It looks a lot bigger now that y'all got it cleaned off. You did a really good job, and I would like to see it paved and make our park look much better.
So you're going to go out and get a bid then, Eddie, on what that will be, and bring it forward?
We'll get it cleaned up and put it out for bids.
Okay. Come back next month, or?
We'll get the bids in as soon as we can. And,
Okay.
And then bring them to this board for approval.
Okay, that sounds great. Ed, do you have anything else on the public works this month?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Police, Fayetteville City School SRO grant.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Approximately a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, was approached about a grant the city school system has applied for. Carla Warden is here with us today. She can explain the grant and what they've received or what they're looking to receive. Also, we have sat down with Stacy Roselle and we've spoken about the funding of the grant as well as the officer for the third SRO. If we all recall, when this all originated, they originally asked for 3. We went with 2. It took me a while to get them the second one. Now they came back for the third one. We do have an officer that is interested in being an SRO officer within the department.
Well, you mind coming forward and just giving us give the board and everybody a history of how it all started, what the city's paying. Yeah, up here, please. Yes.
I am Carla Warden from Fayetteville City Schools. The state has an SRO grant that we have applied for. They were hoping to have it awarded by last Friday. They have not. I have checked on that. We're hoping to have it maybe by the end of the week, maybe by tomorrow. I don't know. It is a grant that is a 25% match, so we, do that. Dr. Wilson has talked to the comptroller's office, and the $30,000 has got the okay for the $30,000 to pay for the vehicle. So we're just kind of in wait to see. We feel like we're pretty sure we will get the grant. We just have not heard back yet. So hopefully that'll be awarded, and as soon as we get that, we'll let you know.
So we spoke, and this came to police and fire, and then it came to finance from the standpoint this third. The grant would pay for 75% of the salary of that third, and then the city school system was going to pay the remaining 25% on the match. And then on the vehicle request, that the school system was going to pay 60% or the $30,000, and basically the request to our board is the remainder on the vehicle, which would be about $20,000. Is that correct?
She is correct.
And then also we talked about the fact that Scott, that we would basically, once, if this did come to fruition and that officer on the force was moved over, then we would hire another officer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I have a question. So, is there a total dollar amount on this grant?
It's up
Or
to,
is it just?
yeah, it's we just applied for the whole grant, so we don't know how much, we will get. Like I say, I hope we hear it by tomorrow. I've been in contact with them. They just had not awarded, I think. We feel pretty sure we're gonna get it. We just don't have any more information. Since we applied for it, we have not gotten any feedback from them.
Yes, and they don't get in any hurry. They work on their
Right,
time.
exactly.
And then we were provided a financial sheet on the SROs, and it explains the breakdown for the current SROs. That's really good and very informational. And for, on here, there is a portion of the salary of this grant. Is that correct, that the city will pay, and then
I have not
The city's
seen
good.
that.
Okay.
Dr. Wilson
Stacy,
had
you
it.
want to explain that?
What you see as the city's portion
Uh-huh.
for that third SRO
Uh-huh.
would be the 2 months in the summertime when they are not in the school system.
Okay.
Our agreement on the current 2 SROs is we split everything 50-50 year round.
Mhm.
We don't try to break out days here or there. It's just simpler to go straight 50-50.
Okay.
The third SRO officer would be an employee of the city, but they belong to the school for 10 months while school is in session. That $11,274 is what it would cost us for June and July.
Okay. So we will pick up that cost plus the cost of the car, our portion of the car,
Yes, ma'am.
and any expenses.
It's my understanding that this is budgeted, correct?
On the very bottom
Or
of that
will be.
second page, the 34,000,
Yeah.
that would be for the vehicle, and the 2 months of that person's salary would be unbudgeted. The replacement officer is already in the budget because he would essentially be taking the place of the officer who is currently in the budget.
Okay.
So the only unbudgeted cost to the city would be the 34,000 for the vehicle and an extra personnel.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions?
Is this gonna take a budget amendment to approve that 34,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We need to take this to, into the, yeah. Okay.
Everybody good with taking this to Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Also, well, we'll get to that. We got some stuff, some other stuff with city school system. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have, the next three items are permits. We have a turbo turtle race, 8/24, a food truck event, 8/24, and Southern Weekend of Arts. Chief, you want to speak to these three, please?
The food truck event will be on the square on 8/24. The Turbo Turtle Race, this is we got how many years they've been doing this. It will be held at Stonebridge Park. We're fine with all of them.
Okay. The Southern Weekends of Arts, this is with the Art League. Alderman Hartman and I were at a meeting there recently. They've moved it from June to September, trying to increase the attendance. They've on your iPads, you see where they have a pretty sophisticated way to vendors to sign up and pick their tent, and they're going to have food trucks at that event, and they've added a Sunday afternoon, which they haven't had in the past. So if it's okay with the board, these are standard permits. Everything's met the criteria that the police department checks off on. If it's okay, we'll take them to Tuesday for a vote.
I'm good with it.
Mayor, if I may point out, I made a typo. On your agendas, it says August 27th through 29th. We'll have that corrected to September 27th
Yeah.
through September 29th.
That's correct, Alderman Hartman, isn't that right? I think it was September.
Yes.
It wasn't August, yeah.
Yeah, September 2.
Number 5, Jake breaks. Scott, you have the committee listed on this to speak to this.
Yes, 'cause I just want to throw it up for board discussion.
Donna. This came out of Police and Fire Committee. Chief Howell had it on the agenda. We discussed this again. We've had a few city residents contact some board members and the police chief, mayor, about Jake breaks. These are when 18-wheelers are coming through town. Instead of using their brakes, they do a compression type maneuver, and it takes the pressure off of their brakes, which saves their brakes, but it emits this huge loud noise. And so a lot of cities, I know Lynchburg has one, especially small cities, it's very disturbing at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, all during the day. Really, I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't know a whole lot about Jake brakes. I know a little bit, but the more the residents bring it to our attention. Also, the fire chief spoke on there's no need to use Jake brakes if you're not exceeding the speed of 45 miles an hour. The fire truck has Jake brakes. You use this like emergency quick stop or to save your brakes. So this citizen, one in particular, keeps coming to us and is asking the city for this because it's very disturbing to their sleep and there's no use for it. So, I asked the chief about, what it would cost I mean, is it a large cost to the city? And from what I understand, Chief Howell, THP would come down and train your officers, is that correct?
First, we'd have to do is pass an ordinance. Ordinance that I gave a copy of from MTAS, sample orders, we'd have to pass it. At that point in time, once it was passed, I'd have to request, and I assume THP could come down and give us some type of class on an inspection of that type of system.
So, I mean, it's just up to the board what you want to do for the citizens. I mean, I've just brought it originally to the board to say, you know, these are the complaints I'm getting.
I think last year or in the past it's come before police and fire, hasn't it,
Yes,
Chief?
sir.
And I think, I can't remember at that time, I wasn't on that committee, if anything was fleshed out in an ordinance format. Like you said, I think either we requested MTAS or we found some other communities that had some documentation from an ordinance format in regards to that.
Yes.
So, what's the board's will or thoughts?
And the same, I'm sure citizen talked to me too. I didn't know what Jake breaks were. I'd never heard this from anybody else. So it's, I had to Google it to see what a Jake break was. But I've never noticed it myself. And I mean, if there's other folks out there that have the issue, I like to know it's more than just one, though, that's got an issue to do some kind of ordinance.
I mean, I live right on the highway, on Lewisburg Highway, and normally what I would hear it is if some 18-wheeler that's not familiar with our community comes flying over the hill down from Fritz's and doesn't realize they're about to hit that curve going into North Main, I'll hear them pull it occasionally. So that's normally when I would hear that type of situation.
And I think that's the key word, Mayor, when they come flying into town,
And
they've got to use that Jake brake.
That's
There's a lot of truck traffic coming, I'm not saying it's Freedom's trucks, but from that direction. So they're coming into town at probably too excessive speed, and they've got to slow down for the light, or they have to slow down for the turn, so they've got to use the Jake brake. Or coming off Park City Hill. So they're coming into town, and you know, the GPS, if you do not keep them updated, you know, they may route these trucks through town, and we are seeing more of the traffic through downtown, so they may have to use them to stop for cars or pedestrians and things like that. I know Eddie said he was seeing more of the truck traffic with the trees, you know, hanging over the streets and stuff. So the residents on Mulberry, they get a lot of the Jake brake noise also, not just this one particular person, because they're coming in from the Winchester side and it just echoes down there. So.
Well, I've only heard from the one, and I did talk to a driver because I wanted to kind of hear it from the driver's side. Mm-hmm. And they did tell me that a lot of times it has to do with the weight that they're carrying, you know, when they need to stop, if they're on an unfamiliar road and maybe there's a curve, or if they just feel like they're in an area where they need to slow down. You know, they may be approaching the square and you know, maybe they're not going over the speed limit, but they feel like they need to slow down. So, I mean, I've only heard from one.
Well, I think the best thing would be for your committee to flesh out an ordinance and bring it back to the board next work session, and we could look at the language and see what it says. And this is separate from that, but I will say, because Alderman Hartman makes a point about GPS, and this has been for years, or something about GPSs, and I saw this one night coming from Gerald's up Lincoln. If you don't have it correctly, it will route you up Washington Street, as opposed to just going up to the square and turning and going up between Gerald's and the strip mall and everything. It'll take them more time to go slowly up the hill and over on the back side of the cemetery and then get back on. So I don't know, between Chief, if there's any way education we can educate. It's hard because a lot of these are not, the thing about truck drivers, they've got to get from point A to B as fast as can, shortest distance or whatever. And we have a little sign on the light right there at Washington and Main, but it's small. And I mean, Eddie, can we make those signs bigger, or is there any state requirement?
State regulations, that's all they put up at that.
So we'd have to request to the state if we wanted larger signs that say no trucks on this particular road.
More likely they'll
I think that's something we need to look at because for years I've had to complain about people coming up trucks, coming up Washington when they don't necessarily need to. But I would recommend that the committee just bring back some language next month that we could look at in an ordinance format.
One question I'd like to ask is how enforceable will this be?
Of course, any law violation has to be in the presence of an officer. One thing I made sure at the committee, of course, here in the city of Fayetteville, we have a lot of complaints from red light, speeding. When you have 3 to 4 working per shift, and that's all you have, it's prioritized. No disrespect to anyone. I am not gonna set a unit there just to watch for Jake breaks. I made that clear in the committee meeting. If they're on patrol, they hear it, they feel they could have a violation, they have probable cause to make a stop, I expect them to do it. But as far as enforcing it, do the very best we can.
So is the committee good with bringing something? Okay. Chief, you have anything else from the police department this month? Fire, we have Mr. Baldwin, the fire chief. Do you mind coming down here for a minute and introducing yourself to the board?
Not particularly, but
Okay, you're it.
Yeah, you're it. Come on. Jump on down. You get to sing the fight song.
oh, we're going to discuss that. Well, good morning again to some of you. I guess I've met almost everybody here. Jim Baldwin, new fire chief from East Tennessee. My wife, Katrina, is on her way very soon. I can kill a bunch of birds real quick with one stone real fast because a lot of questions. Yes, we are closing on a house probably next week on Bellevue, so it's looking promising to finish up. So we should have the whole Baldwin clan moved in hopefully within the next week or so. If anybody has any questions, I'm up for it.
Everything going well so far?
Everything is going well. I don't have a lot to report since I'm not sitting over there and standing here. I'll just say this: we have one position open. We've had 25 applicants from local all the way to California for that, and we're going to begin testing on Monday and Wednesday of next week for that. And then the other notable thing I had for the board today, just for notification, is Engineer Zach Mitchell has attended TFAC as the State Fire Academy's pumper driver course and passed and received his commission certification last month on that. And that's all I had really for the board. So if you have any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions? Well, just welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
And
thanks for having me.
So you've been posting some things on social media as far as with your men and,
yes, sir.
You know, kind of dressing up the facilities, and so you had kind of painted the training room, and
We've made a training room out of our conference room and just took the conference table, moved it into my office. It's not going to be used near as much as the training room, so.
All right.
I did have one question,
Yes,
because I mentioned it to Mr. Collins. Some of the things that were old at the fire station that you may be moving, the museum would like to have some of those things down there.
We have already reached out to them, and we will let them have
Okay.
a lot of stuff if they want
Whatever
it,
they
but
want.
I'm not sure that they'll want it all.
Okay, good.
But thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to. Yes, sir.
I forgot one thing that I needed to cover.
Sure.
I apologize. Fayetteville Police Department was notified by the instructor of post investigator Shayna R. Roberts approximately 2 weeks ago. The way we enter all our training records and the way our training officer interacts with the state of Tennessee, the way that's input, they have selected us to be used as a trial run. They have picked 5 departments across the state of Tennessee. Those 5 departments will enter everything exactly the way we do. If it works out, sometime next year, possibly, the state of Tennessee will be doing the input by all departments just like we do.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for that point of information. We'll move to Parks and Recreation. Mr. Collins, Rec Center feasibility study fee.
Yes, sir. The feasibility study has been underway for several weeks now. However, during the course of it, it was determined the 2008 study that we had hoped to get a lot of information from was incomplete. I'm not sure what really happened at that point, and that's the reason we had the lower figure of $12,500 to be able to conduct a study. Now, I want to emphasize, this is simply a study. This is similar to the Greenway Master Plan that the Board of Mayor and Alderman authorized back in 2014. So in order to be able to provide this board with all of the information to allow you to make an informed opinion on whether or not we could afford, we need, whatever on the recreation center, we're requesting an additional an additional $7,500 for a total feasibility study cost of $20,000.
So what's missing that they're gonna fill in for $7,500?
Mainly the operational opportunities for the center itself. We had requested that they model us after area recreation centers to see how much of their expense is recovered through operation revenues. And so that's a big chunk that we've asked them to that was not considered in the original agreement.
I think
Discussion.
Yeah, I think this is an important part. You know, I don't think it's a question of whether our community wants a recreation facility and wants to do this. I think the biggest question is how can we afford to do it? How can we move forward? And I think this study is very important to get that information.
I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that I agree with doing much more on this. And I was here in 2008. Two of us was here in 2008. Going on memory, I've got a few notes here, but going on memory, the study was going on in that time. It ground to a halt because of the excessive expense that it appeared that, although we never finally got any finalized numbers, what we was talking about at that time, and Mayor Shelton was mayor then, and what we was talking about was a ballpark figure. I don't know where this number came from, but 12 million maybe. Well, when we started looking at what it would take, just not even talking about operations. I mean, not even considering operations. That's a big, big deal, operations is. But at that time, it began to look, really hard. I mean, it was going to take a property tax increase. And it will this time too if we build one. I mean, you can do all the studies you want to, and it's going to take a property tax increase, a big one. I believe I even remember Mayor Shelton going before the Rotary Club, speaking to the Rotary Club, and she had admitted that this would take a property tax increase. She knew that. So we talked about it quite a bit. And that number of 12 million at that time, the thoughts was, well, maybe we could get it down to 10 million just to build it, And it never was really completed because of the big numbers involved, and the fact that we would be looking at undoubtedly a property tax increase. We kind of considered sales tax. That's never going to do it because of if you increase the sales tax 1/4%, you got to get the voters to vote on that. And even if they did, there's things that could happen with the county that you never get hardly any of that really. Because the county's going to follow right up, and then they're going to be into that too. So that was kind of pushed aside, and what talk we did have on it focused primarily. We would probably have to end well. If you was here in 2008 and know how the finances was, there wasn't no doubt. There wasn't no doubt about what was going to happen. So the numbers now, I don't know what we thought we was going to get with this $12,000. I don't know. I'm not too sure. I thought it was going to be able to maybe I guess we didn't know that study didn't go any further than what it did. Because I wasn't sure how far it went because I was brand new on the board. I wasn't very sure how it went. But I'm assuming that the ones that had been into it a little longer than I had, and we just kind of began to see that we couldn't ask the public to come up with that kind of a property tax increase because it would have been a big one. Still will be if we ever do this. And another thing that I've always kind of thought, I'd love to have one, I really would. I'm all about progress. I've voted for about everything we ever had about progress here and took leadership role in a lot of it. But, we got to look at the realities. And the realities is, if you put the numbers to it, and if you just reach up there in the sky and you just pull out a number, Which that's all I'm doing, pulling out a number. There's no background, nothing on this, but anybody knows anything about building, which there's someone here now for sure knows something about building, and knows how all of these things has to come together and all. If nowadays, more than likely, if we built a recreation center like we would want, and with the things that we should have in it, we could very well be at 15 million and not even, I don't even know if that'd do it or not. Probably the low side of that, you're probably talking 12.5. Let's just say if you're talking those two numbers, maybe not even considering operations, but just to get it on the ground and get it open, we might say. We don't have the funding. We know that we've got about enough funding about to do what we're doing right now. We've got infrastructure problems coming up that, unless you've been coming to our committee meetings, you probably don't have any idea of what we're looking at. We're looking at very, very serious drainage problems. Right now, we've got 3 in the process we're working with. We've got 3 more backed up we're going to have to deal with, and they're going to continue to come, and they're going to be big issues because, and we're not going to be able, we're not going to be able to pull away funding from the departments that we have to have for emergency services and for infrastructure and all. We're not going to be able to pull funding from those 3 departments. We're just not going to be able to, because we're going to have that. When this fire chief walks up here and says in a couple of years we're going to have a fire truck, and he's going to be telling us it's going to cost over $600,000. Now, you can't chop that fire truck up and buy it in 3 or 4 pieces. You have to buy it in 1 piece. And I'm just saying, we're looking at some issues that are going to tie up what revenue we've got. To build a $15 million complex will be 38 cents on property tax, about 38 cents on property tax. To build a 12.5 million will be about 29 cents on the property tax. For every penny, we got 150 pennies on property tax, $1.50. For every penny brings in a little over $22,000. That's what it brings in. I mean, that's just real numbers. You multiply that $22,000 something dollars. I mean, whenever you go divide it out, you go and you look at your costs and all. The payments on a $15,000 structure only is over $700,000 a year. By the time you get it paid out, it's up $22,000 you've done paid on it. The payments on a $12,500,000 building is somewhere in the neighborhood of $650,000 to $670,000 a year, and you're going to pay $19 million by the time you get it paid off. Now, I'm not trying to drive us back in a dream of what we all would really love to have. What I'm doing is I'm just simply speaking realities. If we finish this study, and if that's what we want to do, well, fine, we want to finish this study. But when those operational costs is factored into what it will take to operate a facility of that time, you're going from a $700-something thousand budget for the recreation. I'm not going to guess at what you're going, because I don't know. I'm not going to guess. I would be a couple $100,000 off either way. But you're going to add all of that. And you could easily end up with having to come up with 50 cents on property tax to fund the whole thing. Now, I'm just for that one project, not the whole city. I'm all in. I don't mind telling you, everybody tell you in the meetings we've been in, I'm all in on what we're doing with the 2 studies. We're doing the Brandon studies, the downtown studies. I think they're essential. I think we need to push them as hard as we can, because everything starts right here in downtown. This is, and it filters out. I'm just putting out there the realities. If you want to know why the whole thing fell through and came to a dead end in 2008, that is it. We began to open our eyes, to really look at the real numbers, what they possibly could be, and Mayor Shelton, more than likely, and the ones of us that was here at that time, realized that we could not put that kind of burden on the city taxpayer. We couldn't do it. If we ever build that facility, which is a dream to me to build it, I hope we do someday. If we ever build that facility, here's how it's going to come down. If you want to do your studies, go ahead. I'll tell you how it's going to come down. That facility will serve all of Lincoln County and anybody else that wants to come, because that's what we are. We serve everybody. With our recreation department or whatever, we're going to serve the whole county. We're not going to cut the county out. We're going to serve everybody. Just like we do with our school system, like we do with everything we got. We're going to serve everybody. 70 to 80% of the people using that facility will not be city residents. They will not be. The other 25 to 30% is going to pay for it. But I don't have a problem with going further with the study. I'm just saying, this is where we're going to end up. This is where we're going to end up. If we want to continue down this road, what I can see on the positive side with the study is maybe you can get some grasp on what it costs to operate it. And maybe you can get some grasp on, okay, how much payback is it? How much are you going to be able to get back out of it in order to offset some of those costs? That might be something feasible to look at. But I can tell you right now, the recreation is what it is. It's what you serve the public. It's very important. It's very important, but it doesn't make a lot of money. It doesn't make any money at all. Of that $700 and something thousand we're putting in recreation right now, Chris can probably tell you we're not getting nothing back, very little back. But that's not what recreation's about. It's not about getting back. That's not what it's all about. I just want to put that out there because I was here in the first study, and I was here when we put an end to it, and I was here because we put into it because we realized, I believe, that we was dragging the taxpayers down a road that we didn't want to go. I believe that's the reason we did it. So that's the only way I know to connect the two right now, and I appreciate your time.
Further discussion.
Yeah, I'm still interested in moving forward. I understand in 2008 it cut off, and we as a board decided a few months ago to go ahead and get into this study. I don't want to see it cut off again. I think we need to see this through, give the opportunity for the community to come out next week in the meetings, and then, you know, give the opportunity to hear the economic benefits of the rec center. So I'm interested in seeing it through this time and not letting it die again and having to come back and do this again in 10 years.
Scott?
Mayor, Alderman Martinez could not be here today because of work obligations. However, she and Alderman Allen both recommended through the Parks and Rec Committee for this additional funding, just so we can get all the information that we can, so a decision can be made once you all see what the actual numbers. Alderman Bryant provided some strong numbers. However, this expanded study is going to reach out, for example, to Boys and Girls Club. Could that be a part of the service that could use this new center to help generate revenue to offset the expenses we're putting out? Could we enter into with Lincoln County government on a possible user agreement? That's what this expanded study. It is not committing this board one iota for a center. It is simply giving you the information that you can make an informed decision when the time comes.
Well, I don't have a problem with continuing study. Now, as far as talking to Lincoln County about buying in on it or whatever, we did try that with a pool. When we had to build our pool out here, the other pool got to where it wouldn't hold water at all, so we had to build a pool. And I think that was some $900-something thousand, somewhere $1 million, somewhere in that range. And we did go to the budget committee, and we did talk to them about that. Told them all the advantages and all, and it never even got out of the budget committee. It never even got to the full board. But I'm okay with going to study. I would ask this in the meeting you told us the other day. The people we're working with, they wanted $40-something thousand. And what was that? What is it we're giving up?
That would have been if they did starting totally from scratch.
Okay.
And so, and with this additional work that we requested. We're requesting additional stakeholder meetings to, again, get as much information as possible. That was for everything, but because they've already got some information, they were agreeable to reduce it significantly.
So you just want another 7,500?
Yes, sir, please.
I don't have a problem carrying that on to, I don't have a problem carrying on. I don't have a problem moving on with the study at all. I'm just saying up front, just moving forward with this study, I'm just saying up front what we're fixing to run into. And that's what we're gonna run into. That's all I'm saying.
Any other discussion?
I'm good with the 12.5, but I'm not really good with putting any more into it. I agree with Alderman Brown. I think we're going to run into a very high cost that's going to be put on just the city taxpayers. And I talked to Mayor Newman in a meeting earlier. I said that I would not be for a rec center without the county being in, because I don't think, as Alderman Brown said, the city pay for what everybody's going to use in the county. And that's going to be a significant raise in taxes. And I was good for this feasibility study, the 12.5, just to show everyone, because I love the rec center too, but it's going to be a huge cost, and I just wanted everybody to see what that cost would be. And I think that 12.5 is what we agreed to, and I'm good with that and not anymore.
I agree with Alderman Bryan and Alderman Alder also. We did agree on the 12.5 to do this study. And, you know, it seems like this is, I don't know if it's fashion or whatever, but these companies always come back and try to get more and get more and get more. And, you know, we can keep throwing money at it. And if we know that right now it's just not a possibility and we don't want to put that on the taxpayers, why keep throwing more money at it? So I'm like Jeff, do the 12.5, do the study, because we're going to add more money, and by the time that we probably can do the rec center, it's going to be out of date. So there's going to have to be another study. So let's not throw any more toward it. You know, I'm all for the rec center. I think it is a component of the quality of life that we need here. But we've got too many things going right now. We've got to pave the streets. We've got to redo the sidewalks around the square. I mean, they're in terrible shape. So things like that. And then we've got the branding initiative, and we've got the downtown master plan. Let's focus on those, and then maybe at a time later on, then we can be in a position to focus more on the rec center. So I agree with the 12.5.
What comes to my mind is so we won't forget about it, is the soccer field is going to need to be taken care of.
That's right.
We don't know how much that's going to cost to get it started. We've got one field that we know is going to be completed, but we've got to take care of the whole complex, and we don't have a cost on that at all. So we need to think about that as well. Even $7,500 toward that would be something that we would need. And I am for a rec center. I always have been. I was here in 2008 as well, when we had to shut it down, but we've got a lot of projects, a lot.
We've got a lot on our plate right now. Yeah. Now, as far as the county goes, I can't speak for the county. I really can't. But I'll tell you this, though. County's got a lot on their plate, too. They've got a lot on their plate, just like we do, and I don't see much hope in that area at all. And I don't fault them for it. I mean, I don't. They're just like us. They've got a lot of stuff going on. It's just, I think we're heading with this. I didn't intend to try to shut this thing down when it comes to these numbers, but there comes a time you just have to look at the realities. What is almost sure going to happen. No matter what kind of income you think you can pull in with this or that or whatever, you've got to build that thing up front. And you got to get the doors open on that thing, and you don't know that you're going to get a dime coming in from nowhere, and you can't build that building and get people in that building without the contractors building that building have that check in their hand. In order to have that check in their hand, this board will, I'll guarantee you this, to do that, this board will have to pass a significant property tax increase from one project. The last one that we passed was several years ago, and we hadn't had a increase in years and years and years. We had to pass one. Finally, after so many years, we divided that out. 5 cents of it went to the pool. A certain amount of it went to the police building, a certain amount that went to infrastructure, a certain amount went throughout the city as a whole, But we would more than likely be looking at a bigger tax increase, even at 12.5, if we could do it, to go to that one project, just that one. We would end up, more than likely, and I've not looked at the numbers to get in my head on this, we'd probably end up in recreation with a bigger budget we do on, and we got in any other, whatever. It's just, I just don't see it being feasibly possible, no matter how many if, ands, and maybes that we could come up with. You can't build something on if, ands, and maybes. You build something on reality. You got to write the check.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's one reason I'm wanting to complete the study and get all the information we can. Because, I mean, there are certain topics I hear from one or two of the taxpayers, and this is a subject I've heard from a lot of the taxpayers. This next week, we're going to hear from the community. And so for them to make a decision, I think they need all the information and the numbers.
That's okay. In the end, the decision will be made by 7 people sitting right here.
Mayor, what I can do, pardon me.
And I will tell you all this now. This has been a lively discussion, and I've got to get out of here right away because I got to do something. I got to get to Huntsville here in a little bit. So I won't be leaving because we've had this discussion. No, don't think about that. I done let the mayor and Scott know that I got to cut out of here pretty quick. Anyway, I guess that's all I got to say on it. But what I'm hearing, I'll tell you what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing from most of the board right here, I'm hearing that not a lot of interest in going any further with this, what I'm hearing.
Sure.
I learned how to count back in 1982, sitting on a board.
Mm-hmm.
So with the board's permission, what I will do, I will go back to HFR and tell them for $12,500 of our taxpayers' money, we expect a complete report, because that was the original agreement. And if they can't provide us the information that this board requires, I'll come back to this board and ask to find somebody that can for $12,500.
Okay. Chris, do you have anything else in Parks and Rec this month?
I'd just like to announce to everyone that John Bean, our maintenance supervisor, retired as of Monday morning. So we're going to be looking about trying to get him replaced.
And the pool's still open at the weekends?
Yes, sir.
Until what, Labor Day weekend?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Planning and codes, Christy Gentry, Downtown Master Plan and Optional Services.
Thank you, Mayor. The Walker Collaborative offers, as part of the optional services, Keep Plan graphics, and this was brought up in the Board of Mayor and Alderman's focus group that they had with Walker Collaborative. But basically, it is either an artist rendering or a computer-generated visual that will give us a before and after visual for the downtown master plan concept. The cost of the graphics range from $1,500 to $2,500 depending on the view and the method. And our committee wanted to bring this forward to the board to decide if they wanted to do one of the Keep Plan graphics.
And you're correct, we did speak about it, and I think the board was receptive to it in that, and if they are, I recommend we take it, because they did say when you have something visual on paper, it makes a big difference. When we get into the next phase, when the community's going to be breaking up in other groups. And so if it's okay with the board, take this Tuesday night to a vote.
Yes.
Anything in planning and code?
We were going to give a brief update on the downtown master plan and the branding initiative. The next phase for the master plan, we've set the dates. It's going to be a 4-day charrette, September 30th through October the 3rd. During those 4 days, there will be 2 public. The first evening, we'll have a public workshop where the citizens and stakeholders will get to draw on some maps and lay out some opportunities and some issues to help develop the concept plan. And the next couple of days, the team will be working here through the night at the municipal building to develop the draft. And at the end of the 4th day, we will invite the public back to see the concept plan that was created. And it will still be a draft at this point, and they'll gather some more feedback and information before they move into the 3rd phase.
And then the branding initiative.
Adrian is going to give an update.
Of course, the June 12th and 13th were the focus groups that y'all got to participate in with the Chandler Thanks team. And in that, the team notified us that of the 55 cities and organizations that they worked with, we were the only one that has ever had 100% participation for the focus groups. So that was pretty neat to have that. Right now, they're in the phase 2, the evaluation phase, and they're building the brand platform and identity. And we currently have a community survey on the website, the Facebook page, and the chamber has also sent out an email blast. And we encourage everyone to complete this survey to help gather the information to head to phase 3, which is the express phase, where they will tell our story, brand our theme, and identify the evaluation and tagline. So we'll be moving to that phase in the next few months.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to do the survey. It's only 25 questions. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And it's invaluable for them to get what a grasp from what the community wants in this regard. So thank you for those updates. We go to the IT department. Mr. Taylor, you have anything?
Well, just to give you a quick update, Mayor and Board, on our payroll system. One of my concerns was an old system, was on an old server, but it's now been moved over to the new server. And so it's up and running. We're in the process now of converting that payroll into the next gen software, which should occur within the next 2 weeks. And our third-party company that we're working with, Time and Attendance, they are right on track with interfacing with local government. So if everything goes as planned, we should be up and running and testing by the end of this month. So if there's any questions on the payroll, I'd be glad to answer that. We do have a time clock that we're going to bring in that's going to be used throughout the city. That's also going to be able to be used up at 911, so any magnetic cards that we currently use will all be accepted into that one-time clock.
Great.
So, and then with that, we're in the process of doing moves in this building here. You know, IT will be moving down at the end of the hall at Kelly Services. So that's going to be a lot of just running cables and so forth like that. But that move should be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks also, so that I think the plan is to make a war room out of the office that Zach is in. So we've got a lot moving in that. And so we hope to have that done within the next 2 to 3 weeks too.
And that's where your lab will be too, your test
Yeah,
lab.
we'll have a lab, and Zach and myself will be located in one area. And I would, and I've talked to Scott a little bit about it, but I'm just getting quotes on what it would take maybe to secure our municipal building on the 2nd floor. It doesn't cost anything, just for people to say, hey, what would it cost to put door locks in? What would it take to put in our elevators so that we have access to people that are coming up and end on this 2nd floor right here, just to secure this 2nd floor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
we look forward when you bring that to us.
Yeah, I'll have drawings and everything like that, and the total cost of what it would cost if we wanted to move forward in that.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
That's good.
Finance. Ms.
We
Rozelle.
received a letter from the Tennessee Comptroller's Office with our certified tax rate. The actual certified rate came in at 1.5021. The board had approved in the budget process an actual tax rate of an even $1.50, so it's slightly lower than what we had assessed. So that will go into effect. I should have tax rolls coming in next month sometime. We finished strong with the local option sales tax revenue for FY19. It finished the year at $2,646,955, which is $122,000 more than we had budgeted. And our occupancy tax, which is the hotel motel tax that outside people get charged for staying in our hotels, finished at an all-time high for FY19 of $114,619, which was $17,000 more than we had budgeted to bring in.
Thank you. That's good news.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see. Before we get to administration, Scott, I'm gonna bump up. We had, after we got this information on the iPads, we had a couple of requests from the city school system in regards to some budget amendments. Anything, must be just normal housekeeping procedures, moving money. If everything's okay, we'll take this to Tuesday night, the standard procedure. So budget's part of our budget. Scott, we'll go to administration. You had committee scheduled for Labor Day.
Yes, sir. Labor Day, well, our monthly meeting will be September 10th. Work session will be on September 9th. Our committee meetings are always Mondays and Tuesdays prior to the work session. With that being said, we have 4 committee meetings scheduled for September 2nd, and that is Labor Day when city offices will be closed.
I'm sure everybody's excited to come and have those meetings. Oh, that's a no?
The question is, do we want to shift and then juggle a little bit and have all the committee meetings on 2 options? We could shift the Monday schedule to Tuesday, and then Tuesday schedule to Wednesday. Or we could try to do all of them on Tuesday.
I think considering you have several people on the board that work, that you're probably going to have to come up with your 2 or 3 options, send it out to us as a board, or contact us, and then we'll, we've done this in the past, we can adjust accordingly. We'll get it all done that week, as we always do. So, of course, that'll give you a little much pressure on getting stuff up to the iPad and everything for the work session. Because the likelihood is you'll probably have those meetings on Tuesday, and then the finance on Wednesday, the work session on Thursday, and then the meeting the next Tuesday. But we'll make sure everybody can fit that schedule.
I'll send out a sample schedule, and then Tuesday night during the monthly meeting we can confirm.
You have anything else under administration?
Just another reminder, the Camp Blunt Historic Site groundbreaking is Friday, August 16th at 10:30. The final agenda is being put together now, but there'll be a tent on the site, and we'll be parking where the entrance to the actual park will be. So we'll have everything laid out for you, easy to follow.
Okay. Under other, I notified the board last week. We have 2 board appointments, well 3 actually. One's not on here. Appointment Board of Zoning Appeals. We had a person step down. This is a board that only meets as needed. And I recommended Joe Smith. Most people know Mr. Joe. He's an excellent person. He's been on previous boards in past years, retired from engineering, and I'm bringing his name forward, if that's okay. Take that to a vote on Tuesday. And then it's another board that only meets in needs, and that's the Board of Appeals, and that's Tom Bailey and Danny Shelton, and they're existing members, and they wish to serve again. If that's sufficient, we'll take that to.
So we'll have 2 names, Tom Bailey and
Danny Shelton, yeah, on the Board of Appeals. And then last month we talked about a request for doing a couple of resolutions for some people that have given their time to the community over the last 40, 50 years. One is for Tom Bagley, who was our city attorney for 41 years. Johnny Hill drafted some language to that, which is very nice.
And I've gotten updated information from his daughter, so I've even beefed it up a little bit more. So I think I've got a final version ready on that one.
Okay.
I spoke to Christy coming in about getting some more information to put into the one about Mr. Bailey, so I should have it ready well before the meeting on Tuesday.
Well, and Mr. Bailey has done, he's a retired engineer, and he does engineering for us at a very, very reduced rate, and has been a great impact on the city and the Industrial Development Board with our parks and everything, and he's a valuable asset. We just wanted to honor both of these men for their service over the years. And so if it's okay with the board, we'll do that on Tuesday night. Any other board members have anything they'd like to bring forward?
Michael, I have something I would like to bring forward. I just want to address something that's kind of gone off the rails. I sent out an email to the mayor, Scott Collins, the board of aldermen, and the department heads, only for information purposes, not to get anybody involved in politics, not to, cause any uproar, but it was about an event that went through that the city was putting on, and my main concern is it did not follow proper procedure or policy. This went through. I mean, I don't know, is that something that we're going to start now, is not following policy and procedure? It came out of Parks and Recs Committee, and then the next thing, it came before no other board. It did not come before fire and police. It did not come to the work sessions. I mean, we had no knowledge of what was going on. So then, it just worries me, not to mention the cost and the reckless spending, not to mention the duplication of events. I mean, First Baptist Church always has a back-to-school bash. Lincoln County High School, their robotics team and their marching band, they have a back-to-school bash that's a fundraiser. I don't want to divide this city and county anymore, and I just felt like it, put a bad taste in people's mouth. But mostly it's the procedure and policy, Scott.
Okay, what procedure and policy are you speaking to?
Well, one thing, the board, we knew nothing about it. The way I found out about it was it came out on...
No, ma'am. I'm just wondering, what policy are you referring to? I may have overlooked something, but I don't know what policy you keep talking about.
I was under the understanding this was a Parks and Recreation event, just like the Daddy-Daughter Dance, the Luau, all the Parks and Rec events.
Glow party.
So I don't know.
So is there a policy that I've overlooked? Please point it out to me.
Well, it's, we just passed a resolution or ordinance that we needed structure in our meetings.
We've done things in the past, from the rec center has put it out that these things are going to be provided by the rec center. I'm just saying, I don't know of any policy, and I've been here for a while.
Well, and we spoke on this in the June and July committee meetings, which I thought you were present, maybe not at both.
I did go to all the committee meetings.
Okay, well, so you were present, so you heard the discussion. I mean, in July, we even spoke of the cost and what we agreed to and who was coming. And
well, it didn't come from Parks and Recs, but from what I observed in the meeting, it was brought before by one person, and we have a program director. We pay him good money, and I think that's where, yes, we certainly can give our ideas, but it's just reckless spending. And normally these things come before fire and police, and Chief Howell lets us know. He's checked everything out. It was never on that. So that's just what I'm saying. If we, follow the procedures, it didn't happen like this in the future.
it's in the July minutes for the Parks and Rec committee.
It was addressed in July, but Chris was not there. He was not in attendance, so.
It was also talked about in June, and Chris was there.
I don't think it was, but we're not following policy and procedures.
Well, again, if you'll point the policy out, I'll ensure that all department heads follow it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm confused. I mean, was this event different than the father-daughter dance? I'm kind of confused as to why.
Yes, I don't think that we consulted the community calendar. I mean, why would we duplicate services when?
Ma'am, that was a failure on part of our program director who did not follow up on everything that's being addressed.
So it's now Andrew. Okay.
Well, it's all of us. We're a team.
Well, now, in regards to the community calendar, I mean, that's a shot in the dark anytime during the year, because, you know, like there was the Lions Club Jamboree was that night I was working that. I'm a member of the Lions Club. We've done that for years. The robotics thing was, and that robotics was like an 8-hour event. Like that started at 10 a.m. And went till 7 p.m. It's going to be always hard to kind of figure when's the best time for something. And there was an attempt made to spending, was it $1,400 and some change is basically what we're talking about. That's perspective too. Some aldermen would say I wouldn't spend on that. Another alderman said I'd spend it on something else in a heartbeat. So I think people tried their best. We also had weather. The weather came in and it canceled part of the Lions Club Jamboree, 2 games out of 6. And it came in about 8:30, the rain did. It could have come in at 4 o'clock and washed it out. We lost music in the park and we had to schedule that at least twice. So.
And I'd like to clear it for those at home that don't know kind of what we're discussing. This was an event this past Saturday night. It was a back to school event. The Parks and Rec, you know, trying to reach out to the high school age kids. It showcased local talent, young talent. So, and we did learn a lot from this event. Every time you put on an event for the first time, you learn what worked, what didn't work, the date, the time, the place. So it's something we look forward to, you know, hopefully doing again next year.
We have, I would just like to say, we have perceptions when we go to these committee meetings of things that are being said and how we interpret them as coming out of things that are being said. I'd just like to add that when we go to all these committee meetings, if there's something that's been said by any of us that's not quite clear, don't put our spin on what's being said or get clarification so we won't be misquoted when things are taken to other committees to say, she said this when it was not said in that vernacular, if that makes sense.
Oh, I was there. I know what was said and I know how it was presented, and it's not following what
I'm not talking
been done in the
about
past.
I'm talking about any of it.
Yeah.
And all the committee meetings because I left the finance committee yesterday. Didn't feel like I had a need to be there from what was on the agenda and the people who run that finance committee. But if I was there and I heard something that's not quite clear, I'm not going to go to the next committee to say that I heard it this way and misspeak something someone said. So we need to get clarification sometimes.
And I do that because I was at the Finance Committee yesterday and I had a concern about the SRO spending, and I try to do that. There again, the policy and procedure is you wait to the end, and but I was there and I know what was said. So
yeah, well, I don't know what you're speaking about there, but I wanted to say that about any committee meeting that any of us attend.
Well, see, I
I'm
thought
not
part
talking
of
about
the,
any particular, hold on just a minute.
I'm sorry.
Any particular meeting that you've been to, because they're all open for anyone to come to them. But if we're going to go, because Mr. Keith called me in particular and said that I said that I was going to vote for a Jake ban, a Jake break ban, and I've never said anything about how I was going to vote for that in any sense. So be careful in paraphrasing as well.
I'm very careful what I say, and that's why
Well, I
I
mean,
send
Mr.
it
Keith
out.
Mr. Keith said, you said I was going to vote. He was sure that there was a vote for me, and I've never said that.
Okay, well, we can ask Mr. Keith.
Sure.
But, I mean, I'm new
Sure.
to this.
I understand.
And that's why I go to all the committee meetings,
Yeah.
to educate myself. It's been truly
Good
an
thing.
education.
well, my confusion is I thought you said the biggest problem was that you didn't have any idea that this was going on. You hadn't heard anything about it, but you were in the committee meeting.
I was in the committee meeting, and, you know, we can talk about this later or argue it on TV, whatever, but it was brought up by you in the July meeting. And
Yeah.
the program director, the director was absent. Nobody knew anything about it. Everybody's looking around. That's my opinion. Everybody's looking around what's going on. and we can go into more detail about what was already planned and said, and then it never came back to the alderman. We never heard any more about it until it came out on Facebook the Saturday before. And I think that's disrespectful to the alderman. We had no idea. Yes, you had talked about it. Yes, it had been mentioned.
We even
but
agreed
there
on the
was no
price,
plan.
and we even discussed all the details in that meeting. That was where we finalized the details. We began discussion in June, finalized the details in the July committee meeting.
I disagree, but I was there. I know what was said.
All right, anything else? All right, we stand adjourned. We'll meet Tuesday, the regular board meeting.